Today, we have a very special guest on the show. We're going to be talking all about angels. And this is an incredible subject because when we go back into our ancient writings and our scriptures, we get references, let's say, from Genesis all the way to Revelation in the Bible of the three main archangels. You have Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel. And we learn about a fourth archangel, Uriel, in the apocryphal second book of Esdras, and of course in the book of Enoch. But all throughout history, we have a mentioning of angels. We learn about them as the angelos from the Greek word, which is messengers. And every culture around the world has some sort of reference to them. But we want to go deeper into the subject today. We want to find out, have they always been portrayed with wings? How have they helped people? Where do they get involved? And that's why we have with us today Dr. Anne-Marie Evers. She is known in North Vancouver as the Angel Lady. She's got incredible angels all over her property. She's written about them. She's talked about them for years. And it's such a great pleasure to have you with us today. How have you been?
Oh, it's lovely to be here and to imagine being interviewed by a famous person like you and all the people you interview. It's really exciting. And to have a special lady with us today too. So that's so nice. And I believe in angels, and everyone calls me the Angel Lady. And I don't even give my address. I just say, oh, drive up the street, look for the Angel Lady. And they'll ask somebody, oh, that's her house over there. So I really love angels. And I guess it really shows because I have angels in my front yard. I have them all over the house. I have about 200 angels in the house. And then I have an angel chapel in the backyard. Isn't that interesting?
I love that. And I don't consider myself to be famous or important, but you, however, are famous for what you do. And, you've written all these incredible books with Deepak Chopra, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it's through you, actually, that I met Garnet Schulhauser. Garnet Schulhauser's work is amazing. And he talks about angels. I love that in his writing, in the interviews that you've done with him. When you talked to Garnet and you first heard from him that there was this place that normally we call heaven, that he called Aglaia, and he said that there was a heavenly city that's just above the earth, and all these other earth-like planets had their own heaven, but there was a hall of angels there. What was your first reaction to what he was talking about on how angels interact with us?
Well, I was amazed, but not really, because angels interact with me on so many different levels, like on the human level, even with animals and innate things that, just things that it reacts on. And it's amazing because I think, how can this really work? Like, for instance, when I married my second husband, he had a big, was a house, a big thing of a moose head hanging up. And my daughter said, how could you stand that, Mom, with that moose hanging up over the fireplace? And I said, well, it's his place. I don't want to really upset the apple cart. So I started writing an angel letter, and I wrote, to the angel of the antlers that hang over the fireplace of my house, I love you, I bless you, and I ask you to remove yourself to another place. And I thought, well, this is kind of ridiculous. I'm wasting my time probably saying that. And then I thought, no, I'm going to do it. And I know it's going to work. I just know it is. I have that feeling. And would you believe, about 3 months later, Roy said, you know what? He said, I'm going to take those antlers down because I want to paint in here. And I said, oh, that's so good. And then he said the words I wanted him to say. He said, and I think they'll go downstairs and I'll use it as my trophy room down there. I said, that's a great idea. But he never saw me when I walked by and touched the antlers and said, thank you for removing yourself. And you know what? The exciting thing is that if they'd fallen down, guess what he'd have done? He'd have put them back up. And he even had his name and everything. And I thought, wow, this really works. And people couldn't believe it, that it really happened. And some of my friends said, that is amazing. And to me, I've had so many amazing stories. And I'm so excited to share some of them with the people, because they can have this experience too. It's not just one person or two people or certain people, but you have to do the work that goes into it, don't we? Is that right, Johnny? Yeah.
We have to do the work that comes into it. And I want to add that working with angels is not just limited to the Abrahamic religions. We know
No.
that Christianity, Judaism, Islam mentions them. The Prophet Muhammad most certainly talks about his interactions with Gabriel. And in the Buddhist traditions, we have the Siamese angels and these angels depicted in their scriptures. Garnet Schulhauser says that these angels are there for us, to people that have like a guardian angel to keep them safe in times of danger so that they don't go before it's their time in their life plan, because we all make a life plan when we get here. But I
Yes.
just wanted to share something with you and our listeners here that comes from Thomas Aquinas. And this is one of the greatest scholastic fathers. And he devoted a great deal of work to angels and also wrote about them in the Summa. He writes, angels are altogether incorporeal, not composed of matter and form, exceed corporeal beings in number, just as they exceed them in perfection, differ in species, since they differ in rank, and they are incorruptible because they are immaterial. Angels can assume an aerial body, but do not exercise the functions of life. Thus, they do not eat propriety as Christ did after his resurrection. Angels can be localized, but cannot be in more than one place at the same time. The substance of angels is not pure thought, because in created being, activity and substance are never identical. So in some of these writings that we have of angels, we learn that they have been seen and then all of a sudden vanished before people's eyes, that they have helped them in times of need. Do you have any stories that can relate to this, where an angel has been seen or a person has been, encountered a being that all of a sudden they just vanished before their eyes?
Well, that happened to me quite often. One time at Barnes and Noble bookstore down in Bellingham, I was doing a talk, and this nice looking young man came up and he said, "Oh, are you the person that's doing the talk?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh," and he said, "Nice to meet you. My name is Terry," or whatever it was. And then he said, I noticed he did something very strange. I had my books on the table, and he went and picked up the books, and he took one and gave to each of the people. There was about 30 people at the lecture. And he said, "Okay, you need to read this book." And then I started doing the lecture, talking about affirmations, what they are, how they work, and everything. And then I finished. I looked around to say goodbye to him, and he wasn't there. And somebody said, "Well, we were looking for him too. He just disappeared into thin air," was what they said. And I never forget that, because when I saw him, I thought he wasn't real. I thought, this guy is not human. There's something going on here. But I was so glad, and it helped so many people. And it was a bad night. It was raining and everything. They didn't expect anybody to come, but we had a good turnout. But I feel it was because of this angel. And I could feel that presence. It just went through my whole body. And when angels do things like that, you feel like they're inside. Does that make sense to you?
While I was listening to you, I was thinking about that in my mind, how they are living probably in a parallel universe and in another realm, but we are living together, and they are resonating at a higher level, so they are capable of coming down and materialize themselves into human beings as well. And they are definitely our helpers there. This is why they are here. So
I believe that, yes. And also, we need to ask for help, though.
yeah.
We just expect them to say, "Oh, I'll help you with this." And you just ask for help. We need help because of this. And it's just amazing how they come through. And, you can just feel that power. And it's just such a wonderful feeling. And I know one day I had fallen and hurt my knee a while ago. And anyway, I asked that the angels please make sure I didn't fall again. So I was out walking, and I went to cross the street, and I could feel myself falling. And I said, "Angels, please help me now," really loud. And all of a sudden I felt somebody just can't come and just steadied me on there, because the gravel road it was. And I looked around to say thank you. and there was nobody any in sight anywhere. I couldn't, I
Wow.
just looked and looked, and I thought, isn't that amazing? There's nobody here. And how could that be? And then I said, oh, it's the angels. Thank you again. They become really good friends, you know. And then I know
Yes.
one of the ladies I know, her husband and her split up, and she felt so bad. She actually decided to take her life.
Mm.
And she phoned me and said she was going to. And I said, please, please don't do that. Let's think about something we can do. And there are ways we can do this. So anyway, she said no. She got in her car and started driving because she found out her husband had been unfaithful with a family member, which was double whammy. And so anyway, she had the pills with her and she drove to this deserted spot. And she was sitting there and just thinking, I bought the water, I bought the pills, I just want to take them and I'll be gone. And she started to cry. But she looked around, there wasn't a soul in sight, like it was a deserted place. And then all of a sudden she heard a rap on the door on her glass and said, hello, hello, are you okay? And this nice looking guy again, young, he was quite young looking, looks like you, John, really nice looking young man. And anyway, he said, are you okay? And she said, yes. And she started to cry. And he said, go home and work it out. You'll be okay. And she said, work what out? He said, you work out your situation. And all of a sudden she glanced away and she turned to thank him. And again, he was gone. So he saved Mary's life that day because she was ready to do it. She said, I was 5 seconds from taking the pills and the water and swallowing it. So they have helped. And this is what I teach in my lectures too, that angels help. And I call it angel affirmations. So I ask for help all the time and to the good of all. And I have a group that we do every night. We talk to the angels, and so that keeps it going. I think you need to have a relationship with an angel too, and maybe with your individual angel, and call on them. Like I use what I call the angel telephone, and I pick up the phone and say, hey guys, are you there? And their line is never busy. They're never too busy to talk to me. And I really enjoy that. I have an old phone that I use. It's a terrible looking phone, but it's not plugged in, of course, but it's kind of fun. But I just use them. I believe so much in angels because when you once feel their presence, when you once feel that energy that passes, I don't know how I could explain it. It sort of passes all understanding, doesn't it? When you feel that you've got angels around, you feel safe and you feel like you don't take chances, of course, but you also have someone to call on and they're always there. I just love it,
That's the important part about looking at this is to the average person today that might be living their life in this technology driven world that we're in. We would look at these ideas that we get from our religious and spiritual beliefs, and people will dismiss it and they'll say, oh, it's all superstitious. But how many times have people been in trouble and they had this reassuring thought, this repetitive thought in their mind that they had the answer come to them and they knew where to go? Well, sure, we could use modern psychology. We could dismiss that. We could say, okay, this is just part of the subconscious mind kicking into overdrive. But when you talk to a person like Daniel Brinkley, or someone who's had a profound near-death experience and they've crossed over, they see, they get to look behind the curtain. They peek behind the curtain and they see that there's much more going on. There's some people in our science today and that are starting to touch down on calling our world a simulation. They're starting to see that, hey, maybe it's not the way it appears. Maybe this thing we called consciousness isn't being created in the brain. Maybe it's coming from somewhere else, that those places where we're coming here from, there's a non-locality factor to us. It's a non-local awareness that our consciousness is. We're coming from somewhere else. And we have these helpers, these spirit guides, these angels, these beings that are here. So when we traditionally look at what our mystics and our spiritual philosophers are saying, let's say we look at the Protestant German mystic Jacob Boehme. He was having these great visions, and we hear about these different orders of angels. So we hear about the thrones, the cherubim, the seraphim, all these different levels of angels, that these are these androgynous beings that have these certain qualities to them. They come and they help us, just like what you're saying. I wanted to ask you further with this, with these beings, that do you see there being a different role from what people call a guardian angel as compared to what an archangel is? And what, in your words, would you say an archangel is?
Well, I think archangel to me is kind of the angel leader, maybe. Archangel has a special job to do, and like the special angels. And I believe we have our own angel assigned to us, but some people don't want it and they don't have to have it. But but to have an angel assigned to you to help, that's one of the greatest things that we can use, and to ask for help, because a lot of people are too afraid to ask for help because, oh, this, or they don't believe it or not. But once you've done it, once you've had as many things happen to me as I have to do with angels, it's like there are a lot of books written about angels, what they are, what they do. And there's angels of career, angels of health, all know that, angels of whatever, self-esteem and everything. And I do believe that once you have all these angels, but to me, this is what I'm teaching, what we're saying on this program, and what I'm writing in my book is that actually there is no special way. It's your way. You become acquainted with the angels. And then I have a favorite one, and I always ask her to help me when I need help with someone that is going close to passing on, and we work with that. And it just feels so wonderful to have it. And the same one, and things that have happened, like one of the shows we did, we talked about why I started believing in angels in the first place was because we did say the story about my son was born with crooked feet, and they said he'd be a cripple and he'd be in a wheelchair all his life. And I said, no, no, no. And I would look at the angel, I say, please, angels, you can do something. You can make this happen, can't you? And I wasn't too sure, because at that age, he was 8 months old and I was about 23. And so I was doing the best I could for my son, of course. And so miraculously, we had a restaurant, and this one man used to come in and talk to us. And I had David sitting in the high chair. And he looked at David and he said, what's wrong with the little guy? And I said, told the story how he, had crooked feet, and the doctor said, you should get something done quickly because it's going to be too late if you keep procrastinating. So I thought, what do we do? And I'd look at David and I'd say, David, you will walk. I know you will. Normally you will walk. And I said, angels, please make it happen. And then I went about my business, and the fellow didn't come in for a while. And then finally he came in. I said, where have you been? And I think I told the last time that he said, oh, I've been working for you. And I said, what have you been doing? He says, well, I contacted this Shriners and hospital, and they'll pick you and David up on next Monday and take you to Spokane and fix his feet. And I said, what? And he said, how much does it cost? And he said, you don't understand it. It's free. And that was such a wonderful thing. And when you'll never know there's anything wrong with his feet, but that was an angel that first did it. That made me think that was how can you believe that could happen? A guy could take on coming into the restaurant and saying, I worked out and worked for you to help you, with your son. Most people come in to eat, to leave, and then go, So that was my first experience. And I've had so many since then. And that's why the book I'm writing is going to be mostly about all the way that the angels have helped me and all the other people I know. And there's so many people that want to tell their stories. And I said, well, just get them ready and I'll give them to Johnny and he'll do something with them.
Well, the same we could say with you. I mean, when you get these stories out in your books, your writings, your talks, and how you help people is just incredible. With those archangels, however, like you said, these leaders, I completely agree with you. You have Archangel Michael, which is he's usually portrayed slaying the dragon. He has the Roman armor on, the scales of justice, the sword. He's God's vice regent, the keeper of the keys to heaven. He is the patron angel and saint of firefighters, police, and those who are out there doing work in protection and guarding humanity. Then you have Archangel Raphael, who's associated with healing and balance. And when we move over to Gabriel, Gabriel's our messenger angel. We know he's mentioned 4 times in the Bible. We have him 2 times in the book of Luke, 2 times in the book of Daniel. He foretells the birth of Samson. He foretells the birth of John the Baptist, of Jesus. Later on, he kneels before Mary with the Queen of Heaven in this idea that we get through the Bible. And then with Uriel, he's a great seer. Uriel's the great seer that brings forth this vision. But outside of that, we also have another interesting concept. When we go into Kabbalistic lore, we have this idea that there was a great angel, a great archangel named Metatron. And Metatron was when Enoch was taken up, and he was supposedly transformed into an angel or given this new body. And we get a similar story with Elijah when we hear this idea that he becomes Sandalphon. And Sandalphon is supposed to help with great prayers and whatnot. And this is a question that people wanted me to ask you. Some people believe that there are earth angels where they act like an angel. Is it possible that people can become angels, or that there are angels amongst us, like that old Highway to Heaven show or Touched by an Angel? What do you think about that?
I love that show. Yeah. I believe that, it's kind of hard to, first of all, you think it's kind of a stretch to believe a human can do that. But I think that they can for a certain amount of time. That's how I kind of figure it out in my mind. And that's just my own thoughts, that the amount of time would be like, if when they're needed, they could do that, I feel. But I don't think it's something they play around with and just do it to go to a party and do a joke thing. I think it's something very serious. And I really do think that they can take on that, don't you?
I think people can. Have you ever witnessed that, Shoshana, where you had an incredible act of kindness by somebody? It was almost like an earth angel or someone you've encountered.
Oh, I have that all the time. Yeah, I just love it. I
Yeah,
say,
we
thank
have
you, I
both.
want more.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And angels, I was up visiting my friend Chris, and had just done a talk with the people up there in Squamish area. And I was kind of tired. And she said, well, I'm going to church. And I said, well, I think I'll just lay on the Chesterfield and relax. So as I was lying there, all of a sudden I get, wake up, just like that in my head, wake up. And I thought, well, I want rest. I'm tired. Wake up. Now you got work to do. And I thought, what have I got to do here? I don't want to start cleaning a person's house. I don't want to interfere. I'm here as a visitor. And then I heard, get a pad of paper and get a pen. And I thought, oh, good. I can't find a pad of paper and there'll be no pen, so I can't do it. And I looked down on the table, and there was a big pad of paper and about 2 pens. And I thought, where did they come from? I didn't notice them. I get shivers when I say that. I didn't notice them when I came in, but when it said, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do what it's saying. So I grabbed the thing, and all of a sudden, and I'm sure this was automatic writing because I had no idea what I was doing, or I didn't even think about what I was doing. All of a sudden, I get the paper and I start writing away, and I thought, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm up to 10. What am I doing here? What did these cards, what does this mean? And so then I went more and more and more. And then I got up to 72. It took me about an hour and a half to do it before they got back for church. As they came back, I had the paper spread all over with little cards saying, whatever it was, like health, relationships, all this. And so the lady said to me, what are you doing, playing with paper dolls? And I said, no, but something like that. And so my friend Chris says, oh, you're always into something. And I said, well, this isn't really me. This is somebody else. They want this to get out there. And so what it was I just tore up pieces of paper or cut them, but I wrote down, I had 72 cards, remember? And so I went through and I started off with, and I did sections. And I thought, why am I doing sections? Okay, just do it. And I do 12 sections, and they cover the whole, like health, relationship, self-esteem, money, career, everything you would want, it covers in those cards. So then it said to me, well, now what are you going to do? And I thought, well, I'm not an artist. So I went to the store, and I bought, let's see, I spent $72 and I bought all these dollar store things and cards that they were giving away with pictures on them. And then I put the pictures and then with the cards, and would you believe that they ended up being the cards of life? And those cards of life have been up on, they're still up on cardsoflife.com. And they've been helping people for all these years. And I think I put them up at 2000. So they've been up there for quite a few years and on the internet. They're still there. But that was, I wasn't even thinking about it. That's how it said, this needs to be done. And I guess the angels decided that I was the one to do it. And they gave it to me. And and then the people came back and it was sort of like people, it wasn't tarot card reading at all. This is just like answering questions about, should I change my job? Should I do this? Should I do that? And questions that we like to know. And so the lady said, oh, would you put out some cards for me? And I said, well, they're not cards, but I'll put these pieces of paper out. So I did, and they were lopsided and I was ashamed of it. But I said, well, okay. So then I said to her, well, it's saying that you should do this, this, and that. And she said, okay. And then I told her something else. And then she said, oh, well, that sounds kind of good. Well, thank you. And then she said, that's the best reading I've ever had. And I thought, how best reading you ever had from this pile of paper? What's wrong with her? And so she says, no. And I had asked if 3 people came to me and said that the cards of life helped them, I promised I would I'd go ahead and print them and have them for sale. So what happened is, and my friend's daughter came back and she had a friend with her, and they wanted a reading, each of the girls. So I just pulled out these pieces of paper for them. And they said, how did you know that? And I said, I don't know. It just came to me. So anyway, what I'm saying is that, isn't that funny how I wasn't even looking for it, but it came. And it was so, when I look back, it was so strange to all of a sudden be taking a rest and all of a sudden you're piled down with work. But I loved every minute of it and I have them now. So that was one thing that happened. And oh, there's just so many. I've got pages and pages I have. So this is the book I'm writing, is on angels, Johnny, you know that. And I'm in the midst of it. And what I want to do is make it a little different in that I'm saying what angels can do. Because people say, well, it's good to know about angels, but what can they do? They can do anything you ask them to. I mean, I always say to the good of all, but that is my safety clause. So I never make an affirmation without saying to the good of all. And that includes me, the maker of the affirmation.
Yeah, this is very interesting that you talk about the angel cards or the cards of life and also working with these beings in that way, because in a lot of the art we see, whether it's the old Alexandrian inspired art or these great paintings that we saw by Raphael, Michelangelo, all these areas, we see the archangels who have been canonized. We see them portrayed as these strong masculine figures. And we are traditionally told by Thomas Aquinas and others that the angels are androgynous. So we have this aspect. So there's no traditional masculine or feminine aspects to them, yet they appear this way for a certain reason. Now, we do know in our religions that there was a patriarchal aspect of this strength that would traditionally come from the roles that were there in society as we shifted from civilization to civilization. However, I find it very interesting that in our art, we have these very strong depictions of Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and they have the armor on and everything. In the Japanese art, that we find there's these Buddhas, and when you go into the Buddha Amida, where it's floating out in heaven in the Pure Land, we have these beings that are gracefully moving throughout the heavens playing music, or they're putting flower petals everywhere, that these celestial beings are the angels in the various Buddhist traditions, that they're more portrayed on a feminine level, and they are associated with compassion. They're portrayed next to the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas and all that. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's an interesting, balance, a dichotomy there between the masculine and feminine. In your opinion, why would we have a masculine or feminine depiction? Do you think the angels are doing that on purpose? Do they do that to make you feel more comfortable when they approach you?
I think so, because it is kind of scary, because when I was sitting there, I could smell the most beautiful smell I've ever smelled, like roses, gardenias, or whatever. And I could just feel a presence. And even though it was difficult what I was doing, I found that it was enlightening and exciting. And I just felt like I was, and I, you know what? Every time I'd be writing down something and I'd think, what am I doing this for? My hand would stop. So I said, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to say, I'm keeping on. I'm finishing this to the end. And then my hand would start moving. So that must be automatic writing, I think. Wouldn't you say?
I would say so. I would say so. And I'd say you're being inspired. Again, we find these angels depicted in the paintings in Korea on the temples, but they're in India. We had the Siamese angels. We find them everywhere depicted, that people have had these interactions with them, which is absolutely incredible. And they've inspired people in all kinds of ways. When you talk about automatic writing, the Seventh-day Adventists talk about Ellen G. White, who was inspired and had these words coming through her where she was writing. And I believe that's been the case for so many ancient religious texts and manuscripts and those. I mean, again, the Prophet Muhammad says in Islam with the Quran that that's how it came through. Gabriel, the messenger angel, apparently had had that interaction and gave the words for them. And we've heard that in the cases of even in ancient Greece, the theogony of Hesiod, where here's a guy who's a goat herder.
Yes.
He couldn't read or write, but he was approached by these muses that told him about how the universe worked, that they very much sound like angels. They come to him and they're like, listen, you have this, and this going on in your world, that this is how things work. There's many Earth-like planets with people on them, but starts talking about the gods or the great beings that were coming here. With working with angels, Anne, you write in your book, and I've seen the manuscript for your new book that's coming out, very exciting, about angels.
Oh,
You
yes.
mentioned affirmations for people and for children and those who want to use them. Can you give us some examples of how the listeners can use affirmations to start working with angels?
Oh boy. Well, I call it affirmation, angels affirmation. And with the books I have, I just have a whole bunch of them here. I had some of them to show. This is Spark Words, and then I have a money book, and then I have a book with Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer, and it goes on and on. I have 17 of them, so I don't want to take time and show you 17. I'm just saying I'm
Wow.
excited about this new book because I think it's going to open the door so that it's good to have what you're saying, and this would be great for us to maybe say what you're doing to put in the book, what your information, because I think that would really help. And so people, I think maybe I was just about ready to do it, and then that other person changed her mind. Remember, John?
I remember. It's interesting when you start writing with people that they get on a certain wavelength or a type of thinking that they believe that one project should go one way or the other. But I know your work has always been about helping people, and that is very exciting. And that makes me want to ask you another question. You're doing a lot of hospice work and counseling, working in hospitals, helping people who are overcoming cancer treatments and teaching them how to work with their angels and using affirmations. And I know you get calls from not only people that need help in that area, but you get calls from doctors all the time that want you to come speak at these hospitals.
Yeah. And I was lecturing at Lionsgate Hospital in North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and COVID came along and we had to stop. But the thing was there, I was feeling so that it was wonderful, not wonderful, but I was helping people at the last of their life. It was just sort of giving them some peaceful times. And then when I couldn't do it anymore, I felt really bad. So I started a Zoom, but some of them are they're too sick to be on Zoom. I mean, they can't sit up. One lady laid down and listened to Zoom, and she's now just passed away. And the only thing was, when I was doing the lectures for the hospital, the hard thing for me was I'd fall in love with the people I worked with, because they were such darling, just women, men, didn't matter who. And then when they passed away, then they asked me to do their service. And it was pretty hard to love a person and have them go, as a like, I'm talking about not a man-woman love, I'm talking about a universal love.
Of
and
course.
then do the services, and I can't keep from crying. So I said, I'll keep on doing this, but I can't do the services anymore. I'll come and say a few words, but I can't do the whole thing. But it gives me such a feeling that at least somebody is out there cares. And so, I was just going through some testimonials, and I didn't even realize how much people appreciated, especially the book I have, Affirmations, Your Passport to Happiness. It's in its 8th edition on Amazon. So anybody listening, that's the one to get for if you're going to buy a book.
I think that's a wonderful book for people to get. But Anne, I want to ask you, you've been at the bedside with these people that are taking their last breath. Do we encounter our angels when we die? Are we going to see them right away? In your experience and your research and your interactions and conversations, have people told you as much?
Well, I did have 3 husbands that passed away, and the one husband, Roy, he was in the hospital when he did, and he laid there, and I could see him, and I was right there, and I was holding his hand, and I said, go to the light. I just felt like Tom, go to the light. I get shivers when I say that. Wow, go to the light, that there's, something else. And then the nurse said, he's kind of relaxing right now. He's not going to he's not going to be there very long. And then he just sort of closed his eyes, and that was it. And I felt that he did. And then I was called to go to another place. This gentleman was in the last stages, and I got in there, and he was in a bed, and I was talking to him in a room, and there's another lady there. And all the while I was talking to him, he looked up to the corner of the door, and I wondered. I said, "What is he looking up there for?" He talked. It's a little bit yes, and he looked up there, and then he smiled. And I think, that's weird. What is he smiling at the door when he, So I get shivers when I say those things, because they to me they're miracles. And having been with people like that, it's not a thing I like to do, but I just say, just go to the light. You're safe. Believe in what you believe, and what you can't say to them. And it's very hard for me, because I can't say to them that doing an affirmation will cure you. I can't say that. I can say affirmations, when you do them and you physically do them, it's really good. Like one lady started doing an affirmation. She's from Chilliwack here, and she phoned me and said, guess what? She said, since I've been doing my affirmations, her something happened with her kidneys, went up 3 points or 4 points, and they were ready to put her on dialysis if it went one down below. And I said, well, keep on doing your affirmation, but I don't say it's going to cure you, because we don't know. Who knows, eh?
Cannot overwrite our plans, probably, but we can ask for help and maybe extend our stay here in order to fulfill why we are here. But I was thinking about it. It would be so amazing. What do you think about the affirmations for kids?
Yeah. I've actually, this seems like I got books for everything, but I do have a book coming out. It's called CAP, Kids Affirmation Program. And that's with another gentleman named Michael. And unfortunately, he's suffering from Parkinson's disease, and he's not able to do what he's to do to think. We wrote this about 20 years ago, and I think it would be a good time to take it out. So we'll see. But you can only do one thing. But I think for children, I have so many things I taught kids. It was so much fun. And I would say, I went down every month, twice a month, down to Washington State, and I lectured with this grade 3 class, and I just loved them. They were just, and they had a big welcome Anne-Marie to come in when they got there, and they were so cute. And one guy, we were telling him about affirmations and how to act nice to each other. And he gets up and he says, I got something to say. And I said, oh, well, you can say something, what would you like? He says, well, I used to be the class bully here, And I said, no, I didn't know that, but you did? And he says, yeah, but that's before I learned about that affirmations and that ripple effect. And so he says, now I'm the class helper. And I said, boy, wonderful for you. Just like that. So we had so many wonderful things happening with the kids. And even the teacher that I was working with, she took them to the library. And the librarian says, what are you doing with your kids? she said, they're so polite and nice to each other. They're not like the rest of the kids that come. What's your secret? She says, well, there's this woman from Canada comes down twice a month and teaches them something called affirmations. And I'm beginning to believe in them myself, she said, because of what I see happening with the kids. And that was the special time of my life, and I'll never forget those kids. And one little guy, he comes and sits on my knee, and of course he's not supposed to do that in school. And he looks up at me and he says, Anne Marie, I'll never forget you. And he was so cute. And he says, can I tell others about you? And he was moving, and he had a tear running down his cheek, and he had some other stuff in his nose, but I didn't care. I just give him a hug. And I said to the teacher, if I get in trouble for hugging him, then I'll take that trouble, because he was just so sweet. So it's just that kids, that's really why I'm keeping on working with this, because it's a lot of work. But the things I know, that the 2 books I want to get out, and like you said, we can ask for more time. And I did that too. And I'm in the hospital. I had colon cancer, and then I got a bad disease, from the hospital. And then I was laying in bed, and I said, am I going to be around or not? Can I have a few more years that I can help more people and write the books I need to write? And I said, thank you. And then all of a sudden I'm laying in my bedroom. All of a sudden this light comes on, and this great big, a big ball in the sky. And I look up and I think, what in the world is happening? Is that the moon? Is that whatever? And then all these rays came right down into my bedroom and just covered me. And I felt so wonderful. And I thought, I'm going to make it. I am. And even people said, you're not going to make it. They said, and I said, cancel. I said, I made a deal, and I'm going to keep my part of it. My part is to do what I'm doing. And that's why sometimes, my husband now, bless his heart, sometimes he'll say, do you really think all this work you're doing is really helping? And I said, I certainly do, or I wouldn't be doing it. Every minute is helping people.
I completely agree with you. The wonderful work that you're doing. And, before we leave that subject of the angels that people would encounter when they die and what happens in that realm, I've often heard from the likes of Garnet Schulhauser or those who have had NDEs that their guardian angel was present with their spirit guides and those that have been around them in life when they did their life review. And it's interesting because I have some great friends that have written about astral projection or out-of-body experiences. A great guy I know is William Buhlman, and those wonderful books like Adventures Out of the Body, where they look at our world and our universe and this reality that we're in, like the outer epidural layers of skin, like an onion. And it's interesting because when we talk about discarnates and haunted house and ghosts, there's an aspect where we hear that there could be these troublesome, experiences or beings in certain places that are getting a chance to move over, or they're getting a chance to cross over and move on. And oftentimes we're told that they don't want to do that right away because they have to go face the life review. And it's a process they go through. But point in fact, when we hear from people that they might appear to us in the room before or just after they've crossed over, this is an interesting thing, that we sometimes will get a message from someone who's passed on. According to Robert Monroe, hold on, I'm trying to think of his name, Robert Bruce, he wrote this book called Astrodynamics, which in my opinion is a must-have book if you're interested in astral projection. Wow. It goes into all the aspects of not only out-of-body experiences, but he maps out these different places that we go after we die, or where we can go, and in places we can explore in a similar way that Garnet does. He said that anytime that you have an encounter with a loved one who's crossed over, he says, pay close attention. You'll usually see this silver kind of an outline around them, or like a shining kind of glimmering look. He said, to make that kind of appearance takes a lot of energy, he said. And usually it's because right behind them is an angelic being. He said an angelic being has to be present to make that happen, to make it possible. Yeah. And usually gives that appearance to give some reassurance to that person. Many years ago, I was working in a place with special needs people. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. I was finishing my practicum after going to school for psychology and counseling and stuff like that. there was a lady there, and she was a very, very sweet lady. And she was in this program, this special needs program. And she told me that after her mother had passed, that she was looking in the mirror, and all of a sudden her mother appeared behind her, very crystal clear, and said, "Everything is going to be all right. I love you," and then vanished. And the great thing about these people and those programs, those working with those folks, is that they're not the type to make grandiose things up or exaggerate. There was a real sincerity and an honesty coming from the heart. And
Oh,
I've
yeah.
heard many great experiences like that. So I do believe that these angels are always around us, and they're not going to